Live and drink, my friends, and welcome to Qud, a land that can be cruel and unforgiving even to those experienced in traversing its many ruins. If you're returning after a lengthy break, or if you've completed the in-game tutorial but aren't sure what to do next, this video will act as a beginner-friendly guide to reaching the 6 Day Stilt, an important early location that many players have never survived long enough to see. I'll be playing as an iteration of a character that I've used since I first played Caves of Qud in 2015, an axe-wielding marauder with multiple arms that shoot freezing rays. I'm going to take it that you've at least completed the tutorial and you know the basics of movement, menu navigation and interacting with objects, so I'll focus on the next concepts you will need to survive and thrive in the often brutal but never boring Caves of Qud. Prepare to witness staggering displays of strength in 16 glorious colours. These are the all-new thrilling adventures of Axeii Moron. On the 10th of Shawat Ux, our hero arrives in the oasis hamlet of Joppa in search of work. A local farmer named Mehmet claims that some creatures holed up in a cave to the north are destroying their water vine crop, and promises that the village elder will reward us for returning with one of their corpses. Just over his shoulder, another farmer stops to tell of an odd trinket, ancient technology beyond his or our understanding, that he found while working his field. He asks us to make a pilgrimage far to the north, to the great mechanist temple of the 6 Day Stilt, and offer it to the sacred well, watched over by the high priest Eshelstat II. Most of the larger settlements in Qud are guarded by a member of the Fellowship of Wardens, and Joppa is guarded by Big Yarame. Axeii Moron engages them in a water ritual, sharing a dram of water to increase his standing with both the wardens and the villagers of Joppa, who admire Yarame. In the southwest of the village, the grumpy tinker Axeii barks orders to bring him an artifact for his experiments. We could traipse around Qud in hopes of finding one, or hand him the trinket, just given to us by the water vine farmer. He won't know any better, and we need the XP now. Having proven ourselves to Axeii, he now, no doubt, has a loftier task for— oh no, he just wants another artifact. We promise to return with one and clean up his workshop by picking up some scrap strewn about the floor. By default, these will be picked up automatically by moving onto the same tile as them if there isn't an enemy in sight. We pay a quick visit to the Dromad merchant Tam, but our low ego means prices are high and they have nothing of immediate interest for us anyway. They do, however, have a pair of painted slippers. By looking at them, we are rewarded with some lore about the life of the Sultan Reshef. 6 sultans ruled Qud in the far distant past, with Reshef being the last. In any playthrough of Caves of Qud, the names and lives of the other 5 will be procedurally generated, but the life of Reshef is static and connected to the game's main story. Directly to the north of Tam's tent is a statue to Reshef, from which we can learn another story about his life, and on the screen to the north of Joppa, on the outskirts of the village, a statue to one of the procedurally generated sultans will always be found. Axeii Moron finds one depicting a scene from the life of Khosrashir II, from which he learns the location of the Channels of Shush, 2 parsangs to the east of Joppa. Simply visiting the location gleaned from the statue can be an easy way of getting some early XP, but Axeii Moron plans first to head for Red Rock. Before doing so, he returns to Joppa to buy some bandages from the village apothecary, as damage from bleeding can end a run early. We chow down on some of the village's fresh apple mats to increase our healing rate and decrease our water consumption, and begin the trek north. Not far outside Joppa, night begins to fall. Axeii Moron doesn't need to carry a torch due to his night vision, but our line of sight is severely restricted in an area teeming with crocs. The night is dark and full of terrors, so you could rest until morning like Krugsmash does in their ongoing playthrough. Axeii Moron will instead take the opportunity to bully some fish. In Caves of Qud, you are extremely squishy at level 1 and can easily end up getting killed in your first combat, and I say that from experience. So slaughtering some of the glowpads and glowfish that live in the marshes surrounding Joppa can give you enough early XP to at least reach your first level up. These creatures usually start neutral to you, so you will need to force attack them by, on keyboard, holding control while trying to move into the same tile. While now hostile, glowpads can't move at all, and the more fragile glowfish can't move out of the water. So, stand at the edge facing one enemy and batter away until they're dead, stepping back to heal when your health falls or if another enemy appears. We can also test out our freezing ray, using it to damage multiple enemies by lining them up and hitting the one in the rear. The dismember skill should also be used liberally, not alone severely injuring a creature by cutting off one of their limbs, but also causing them to bleed, taking damage over time. The target panel, the message log, and our own HP bar should be consulted to see how well a combat is going. With a bit of patience and a bit of caution, these creatures might be weak but they can still kill. Axeii Moron has bloodied the water enough to level up. We get some extra hit points and a mutation point. 4 of these can be stockpiled to purchase a new mutation, but I'm going to spend this one increasing the level of our Freezing Ray. At level 1, Freezing Ray deals 1d3 plus 1 damage, but because we have multiple arms and are firing Freezing Ray from our hands, we get an extra damage bonus. Spending a mutation point will increase the damage to 2d3 plus 2, and will drop the enemy's body temperature by 2d4, increasing the chance of freezing them solid. We've also gained some skill points, determined by our intelligence score. The higher this is, the more skill points we'll gain on leveling up. Axeii Moron doesn't have many options at the moment with the few points that he has. I could wait until the next level up, but instead I take Hurdle. This means that we will suffer no dodge value penalty when sprinting, helping us escape from difficult combats. As morning approaches, Axeii Moron finishes off the remaining witnesses and collects some of their dismembered limbs for when he gets the munchies. Resuming his journey to Red Rock, a croc appears from the furthest corner of the screen, but is frozen solid by our new and improved Freezing Ray. This lets us get in a free round before they thaw out, and another dismember makes quick work of them. By walking over the corpse of our defeated enemy, our passive ability Butcher Corpses fires, converting their body into raw croc meat. Not all corpses can be butchered, but those that can be will be butchered automatically, unless you press the corresponding button to turn this ability off. Axeii Moron finally reaches the outskirts of Red Rock and finds himself surrounded by baboons. A quick press of the Alt key shows the attitude of all creatures on the screen towards us, and the baboons appear to be neutral, so they'll concern themselves with attacking goats as we continue on. Moving north, another screen brings us from the outskirts of Red Rock, shown in the top right, to Red Rock itself. In search of a stairs down to the cave itself, Axeii Moron finds a shrine to the Sultan Irapur and vast quantities of asphalt, slowing down his progress. Pressing 0 to auto-explore the screen leads us to eventually find the stairs down into even more asphalt. While we find the stairs to the next floor nearby, it's worth exploring the whole floor before descending further. Our first ranged enemy gives us an opportunity to try out our charge ability. Seed-spitting vines do exactly what they say on the tin. They spit seeds, so a charge allows us to close the distance rapidly, and after a few attacks we gain another level up. Every 3 levels we gain attribute points. If the level number is uneven, as in this case, we gain a single point to spend. But if the level number is even, then every attribute will be increased by 1, which we can expect to happen at level 6. I'm going to put this point into agility, which you should note increases our dodge value. I'll deal with this shortly. I spend the skill points on acrobatics to help deflect missile attacks from enemies like seed-spitting vines, and hold on to the mutation point. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to upgrade Freezing Ray, because it's reached its mutation cap. The cap is based on our character level, and I won't be able to upgrade it again until Axeii Moron reaches level 4. Continuing on, we get stuck in some asphalt with a centipede bearing down on us. Look at how our dodge value briefly drops to -10 before we break free. Axeii Moron is not in a good position, wedged between 2 enemies, so I activate Sprint, which doubles our move speed, and we withdraw to heal. As he passes them by, this gives the spider a free attack, but we're able to shrug it off due to our high dodge value from the tactics skill we took earlier. Of all the myriad skills required to thrive in Qud, I'd say that threat analysis is the most important. Making sure you have an escape route off the screen or to the stairs up to the previous level. Understanding when you can push the attack and when you need to retreat. These are skills you'll mostly learn by dying. Repeatedly. But with time, effort, and a commitment to improvement, you will eventually die to more and more impressive creatures and damage sources. That is what progress looks like in Caves of Qud. After recovering his hit points, Axeii Moron rips a spider to shreds, dismembering its face in the process, and then wearing its face on his own face. This gives a +1 boost to ego, making prices during trade more advantageous, but will greatly anger any spiders we encounter. Descending another level, Axeii Moron finds a copper nugget, a valuable trade good just lying on the ground. As he moves, jilted lovers in the walls try to grab him, more of a nuisance than a real threat. But with all the delving and fighting, Axeii Moron has become hungry. Across the top of the screen, next to our current temperature, we can see our current hunger and thirst status. By default, we automatically drink when we become thirsty, but to alleviate hunger we must either cook or eat something from our inventory. Cooking food at a campfire offers significant buffs which we'll look at later, but for now we'll use a campfire we stumbled upon to cook a basic meal. With a full belly, Axeii Moron comes upon a snapjaw scavenger wielding an iron battle axe, more sophisticated than our current weaponry. With only one square between us, if Axeii Moron was to move forward, this would grant a free attack to the snapjaw. Instead, by pressing 5 on the numpad we skip a turn, and the snapjaw moves forward. This grants us a free attack, smashing the snapjaw to pulp. This is the first creature with loot that we can take. Most of it is useless, but can always be sold. We also equip their iron battle axe in our primary weapon slot, but no sooner have we done so than we dispatch another snapjaw wielding an opal-pommeled steel battle axe. Now is probably a good time to discuss combat in Caves of Qud. An attack in Caves of Qud results in 3 phases or checks: to hit, to penetrate, and damage. First, a 1d20 roll is made for the attacker, to which is added their dexterity modifier and any modifiers from skills or the weapon that they're using. Our iron battle axe has no bonus, but the opal pommel of the steel battle axe confers +1 on the to hit check. The resultant number is compared to the dodge value of the opponent. If it is less than or equal to, the attack misses and the round ends. Otherwise, we move on to the next phase. The penetration check is where things get really convoluted, as multiple checks are made for a single attack against the enemy's armor value. If none of the rolls are greater than this number, the attack fails and the round ends. If any of them succeed, then 1 penetration success is banked, but if they all succeed, then another round of checks are made with a negative modifier applied. For every banked success, a round of damage is dealt, meaning multiple rounds of damage can be dealt from just a single attack. The to hit calculation uses a character's agility modifier, but the to penetrate check uses a character's strength modifier up to a certain cap. Axeii Moron has a strength modifier of +3, but the bronze Axeii wheels initially is so flimsy that it caps his strength at +1, meaning it has less chance of penetrating an enemy's armor than a steel battle axe. Over time, you'll need to swap out for higher tiers of weapons to survive. In short, the higher your agility modifier, the higher the chance you have of hitting the enemy, while the higher your dodge value, the better chance you have to avoid being hit. The higher your strength, and the higher the cap of the weapon that you have, the better chance you have of penetrating an enemy's armor and dealing damage. The higher your armor value, the better chance you have of not taking damage. Basically, bigger numbers are better numbers. When in combat, keep an eye on the message log. If you're missing and taking lots of damage from an enemy, it might be time to run away. In a chest, Axeii Moron finds an artifact to finish off the quest for Argive, and after dispatching a centipede, he levels up again. For now though, I'm going to bank the mutation points and the skill points and continue on. Another chest offers to us a Nullworm skull, which, like all pieces of armor, has 2 numbers after its name. These represent the changes that will be made to our armor value and our dodge value by equipping it. In this case, our armor value increases by 1, and we also get a boost to our ego while we wear it. Down onto the next floor, and the snapjaws are lining themselves up to be taken out by a single freezing ray. If you find yourself surrounded by the bodies of your defeated enemies, don't be too eager to loot them, especially if you're still in combat. Here, Axeii Moron picks up 2 items, each causing a turn to pass. Looting bodies while in combat will give your enemies free attacks against you. We also come across a kudzu for the first time, a plant that has a chance to rust your weapons and armor, rendering them useless. If possible, it's best to avoid them, or take them out with ranged attacks. Taking out a Snapjaw Warlord and some more centipedes brings Axeii Moron to level 5, and this causes his genome to enter an excited state. This happens first at level 5 and then every 10 levels afterwards. This allows us to increase a physical mutation by 3 levels. It does not apply to mental mutations, and I pick Freezing Ray. If Axeii Moron had 4 unspent mutation points when this occurred, we'd be given the option to buy a new mutation first. The pop-up tells us that Freezing Ray has now been advanced to level 5, but when I check, it's only at level 3. This is its current mutation cap, and as Axeii Moron continues to level, so too will Freezing Ray as the cap rises, until it reaches level 5. With 171 skill points, I could buy multi-weapon fighting, which would give Axeii Moron the ability to make an attack with his 4 hands, and later increase the chance of making offhand attacks. This would be tremendously useful in taking down big enemies, but at the moment, I don't feel I need it, and, having played a bit of the game, I know of a way of getting multi-weapon fighting without needing to spend skill points. Instead, the points will go into meal preparation, allowing us to gain buffs from cooking at a campfire with ingredients, like all those corpses we've been butchering. Descending another flight of stairs, we finally find what has been eating the water vine, a hideous, defanged Gershling. Indeed, we find 2 of them, and are quickly reduced below 40% health. In a scenario like this, it's wise to run away. By activating Sprint, our move speed doubles for a short while. We climb back up the stairs and move away as the creatures downstairs could still attack upwards or follow us up. All this nearly dying has made Axeii Moron hungry, a great chance to try out our new meal prep skill. First, we can preserve our fresh food, turning raw croc meat into jerky that we can eat without getting sick or use in a meal. Instead of whipping up a meal from random things on the ground, we choose our ingredients, taking some of the salt water that we're standing in and adding in the dismembered stem of a glow pad. From this, we gain an increase to our natural healing rate and extra HP, which will last until we become hungry again. Feeling fuller and stronger, Axeii Moron prepares to descend once more, but trouble has come looking for him. One of the Gershlings has climbed the stairs. We're able to see it off easily enough, and by picking up its corpse, we complete another step in our quest. There's still an entire floor to explore, but instead I'm going to take my bounty back to Joppa and maybe return later. As a reward for our service, Elder Irudad gives us a weird artifact, some salve injectors, and an Uber Nostrum injector. The weird artifact is Fix-It Spray, and can be applied to rusted, cleaved, or broken objects. Salve is a healing item that can be used to rapidly regain hit points, as can the Uber Nostrum injector, but this can also regrow a lost limb, so it's wise to hold onto it until it's badly needed. Be careful when cooking, as you can now preserve these exotic foods, rendering them into ingredients that can add buffs to your meals, but no longer usable immediately as healing items. Tam, no doubt, is delighted to see us coming, weighed down with junk we found in Red Rock. You can see just how much of a penalty we suffer on selling items due to our low ego, even though it's boosted thanks to the bloody spider face and nullworm skull we're wearing. For example, we can sell an empty water skin for almost 2 drams of water, but would have to pay 15 to buy it back. This doesn't apply to trade goods like copper nugs or their gold and silver variants. These items have a fixed price regardless of your ego and regardless of if you are buying or selling, allowing them to be used as a store of wealth, as they weigh less than their equivalent value in water. We hand in one of our unidentified artifacts to Argive, who now wants a few hundred feet of copper wire, which can be found in the rust wells to the east. We can also get Argive to identify our remaining artifacts for a few drams of water. With his low intelligence, Axeii Moron would most likely break them if he tried to do so himself. Between Joppa and the rust wells is the Channels of Shush, a site linked to one of the sultans, and on the way there, Axeii Moron hits level 6 while slaughtering a group of snapjaws. All of his attributes have increased by 1, Freezing Ray has increased by 1 level as our mutation cap rises, and we now have enough points to buy a new mutation. Because I took Chimera at character creation, I only get physical mutations to choose from, and I take multiple legs, for the increased move speed and the insanity of having even more limbs. Move speed is a measure of how far we can move in a single round, while quickness is a measure of how many actions we can take. Most actions, like moving, attacking or picking items up, costs 100 quickness, so with a value of 100, we can make 1 action per round. Unspent quickness points are stockpiled, so if we had a quickness score of 120, we could take 2 actions on every 5th turn. In short, the higher these numbers, the further we can travel, and the more actions that we can take on average. Now, back to looting the dead. On one of the recently departed Snapjaws, we find a wooden buckler, the lowest level shield in the game. Bucklers are equipped on the arm, not the hand, so we don't have to give up one of our axes, and while it will decrease our dodge value by 1, it will only increase our armor value by 1 if we successfully block an attack, and we can increase the chance of this from 25 to 50% by taking block in the shield skill tree. On reaching the channels of Shush, Moron gains XP and is faced first with an eyeless crab, and then members of the cult dedicated to the Sultan associated with the site. They are hostile to us, but we could change this by wearing or wielding items depicting events from the Sultan's life. These would give us a reputation bonus, but at the moment we don't have any. The crab manages to daze Moron, and he withdraws to heal before being surrounded by cannibals. Those that follow are dispatched quickly, and on returning we find the eyeless crab has died, bleeding to death after we dismembered its face, which we now wear out of pure spite. While changing faces, a force field has popped up in front of Moron, and it's not long before we find what's causing it. It is time, once again, to run away. Moron was hit with an attack called Sunder Mind. Luckily, he was close to the edge of the screen, as transitioning from one to the other interrupts the attack. Had we moved into the centre of Shush before the attack started, we might have been in severe trouble. Each round, the Sunder Mind attack makes penetration checks against the defender's mental armour, equal to 4 plus their willpower modifier. Moron has no willpower, and his squishy brain would be no match for a high-level Esper. While bravely running away, Moron stumbles upon a procedurally generated village whose Breathbeard Queen has a task for us to close the divine iron gate at the lair of a nearby legendary glowpad. While travelling there, we encounter a legendary scrap shoveler with an entourage of followers. I can't water ritual them as they require oil for this, but I can save their location into the journal by pressing insert so that I can find them again easily in future. Dromad merchants and legendary lairs will be added automatically to the journal, but not random legendary figures like this. Most of the creatures at the Glowpad lair are neutral, but by taking out a few angry plants, Moron levels up again. Multiple arms gets a mutation point to increase the chance of my ancillary arms making an attack, and I take Mind Compass to reduce the chance of getting lost travelling the world map, preparing for the push towards the 6 Day Stilt. Descending a level, Moron finds some cider in a glass bottle. The cider can be collected manually into a water skin, and this can then be set up to auto-collect, so it will pick up all cider in future until full. When we find the Divine Gate, it's already closed. This entire quest was a waste of time. But we open it and close it again, so that we can submit our invoice and get paid. The legendary glowpad here is disliked by Dromad merchants. Killing them would increase our reputation with traders, and give us better trading prices, but then we'd have to fight our way out of here. Maybe something to think about in future, when we've leveled up a bit more. Moron stops briefly in Joppa to pet a cat, and then back to the Queen of Sharalep to collect our reward. We are offered 3 very interesting items. A Schrödinger page from the Annals of Qud. These come in 2 different types, with the chapter unspecified or, in this case, for a specific village or faction. Schrödinger pages literally rewrite history to increase our reputation with a faction. An unspecified chapter lets us pick any faction we want, making them a lot more useful. The hover sled will take up our floating nearby slot and greatly increase our carrying capacity, but I'm going to take the bioscanning bracelet, which can be equipped to our arm, reducing the number of bucklers we can equip, but now giving a detailed readout on the hit points, armor value, and dodge value of our opponents. The bracelet needs an energy cell for power. We can buy these, find them in other powered artifacts, and pay village tinkers to recharge them until we can learn that skill ourselves. Moron takes a risk at identifying some artifacts he's found and figures out that one of them is a Forgotten Ruins recoiler. Recoilers are very useful, instantaneously teleporting you to a named location as long as there are no enemies around you. A Joppa recoiler is actually the reward for completing our current mission for Argive. The recoiler we've identified will transport us to ruins somewhere on Qud, but for now we'll store it away. I want to take one more skill before heading for the 6 Day Stilt, and while wandering around looking for trouble, Moron finds some shotgun shells and a weird artifact, which does indeed turn out to be a shotgun. This is equipped in place of a short bow he found in Red Rock and never used. A stairs going down, which we passed when running away from Shush, should have enough enemies to test out our new weapon and level up. It's important to keep a clear path to the stairs back up in case we need to retreat, and doing so when our health falls, sprinting, freezing, and shotgun blasting as necessary. On a dead body we find a pair of boar skin gloves, which, when equipped, should increase Moron's armor value by 1. But because he has 2 sets of arms, the second set of which has no gloves, the bonuses are being averaged and rounded down. So to gain the effects of 1 pair of gloves, he needs a second pair. One of the disadvantages of having so many limbs. In a tough combat with a 2-headed boar, Axeii Moron decides to turn off butcher corpses. Up to now I've been pressing 5 on my keyboard anytime I want to dismember, but after I examined the recoiler, the ability to use it was added to the abilities bar, offsetting dismember. I don't plan to recoil anywhere for a while, so I press A to bring up the list of abilities and move recoil down the list, restoring dismember to the number 5 slot. Fighting a Nullworm, we can see our shield blocking attacks, the improved readout in the target section thanks to our bioscanning bracelet, and we get some meat from our defeated enemy after turning butcher corpses back on. After exploring a few screens and looting some bodies, Axeii Moron is close to his carrying capacity, and without a reliable way of recoiling out of the cave, it's not worth going too far and getting lost. Just before exiting, we find some fish swimming in fresh water, which we could pick up, drink, and use in trade. It's free money, unlike the more common pools of salty or brackish water. It'd be worth making a note to come back here again and collect it. We also managed to hit level 8, the whole point of descending into this cave in the first place, and we take the Canyon's Wilderness lore skill. There is a thin sliver of canyon that stretches as far as the 6 Day Stilt, and this skill lets us travel through this region with a much smaller chance of getting lost. Our intelligence is not high enough to take the same skill for the Salt Dunes, which is a much more dangerous area. Axeii Moron stops once to get some food, not strictly necessary, and other than that he manages to travel north and cover the last few parsangs of the Salt Dune without any trouble. And so we are greeted with XP and the hustle and bustle of a busy market. To the right of the main entrance, the Hindran Pariah Lullyheart will ask us to undertake a quest, the culmination of which, if we choose correctly, will be to learn multi-weapon fighting without spending skill points. On the other side, the devotee of Reshef, Zapur, will trade secrets of that sultan's life for XP, so it was worth looking at all those statues and slippers. Warden's Esther stands guard at the entrance to the main temple itself, and now that we have explored some of the world, we can water ritual them and share the location of villages we have found, to further increase our reputation with the Fellowship. The main temple sits at the centre of the 3x3 block of screens that makes up a parsang, and in each of the other screens are a myriad of different stalls, selling everything from bee juice to powerful weapons and armour. Axeii Moron stops in for a quick puff on a hookah. I'd advise you do the same, and look through the items the merchants are selling even if you don't need them. I managed to find another secret about the life of Reshef, painted on a clay picture, that I was able to tell Zapur for even more XP. Having checked around the stalls, Axeii Moron finally enters the Great Temple. The High Priest Eshelstadt II stands before the Sacred Well. This will accept any of our artifacts in return for reputation with the Mechanimus. With enough reputation, we could even convince the High Priest to abandon the temple and join us in our adventures through Qud. We'll deposit a fungicide grenade in honour of the water vine farmer back in Joppa, whose trinket we gave to Argive instead, and pay a quick visit to the adjoining graveyard. Then, in a little alcove, we find the librarian of the Stilt, Sheba Haggadaius. Each time you start a new game, they are a completely different creature. In my run, they're an urn duster. Unfortunately, I haven't managed to find any books so far. I imagine there would have been a few at Shush, and there's no bookbinder at the Stilt, so all I have is a recipe book I picked up at one of the stalls, all about cooking tasty meals using slime. As Axeii Moron has memorized these recipes and can use them the next time he cooks, I can trade the book to the librarian for XP. This is another reason the Stilt is such an important early location to reach. If it has a bookbinder, or if you can find one on your travels, it will basically allow you to turn money into experience points. So brings to an end the opening chapters of Axeii Moron's adventures in Qud. From here, he could travel north to the asphalt mines and get some oil to water ritual the cool robot he found, though there's probably some sold here in the Stilt. He could head to Bela to dispense justice and pick up multi-weapon fighting, or head down to the Rustwells to get that copper wire for Argive and continue the main quest. There's still an Esper at Shush to deal with, a recoiler to be activated, and even a space-time vortex to be jumped into back at the village of Shuralep. With access to the Stilt and a better understanding of some of the basics. I hope you're now better prepared to deal with the Caves of Qud. As Moron departed the stilt, he heard in the distance a thunderous noise. A salt kraken, a gargantuan beast with over 1,800 hit points, slowly moved across the desert, churning up the ground as it went, leaving rocks and trash and corpses in its wake. The first that Moron butchered was of a Svardum, a powerful, frog-like humanoid usually found in the far east of the map. Moron followed cautiously, reverently, in the trail of this monstrous force of nature, gratefully accepting the offerings it tore from the sand salt. As night fell, the sand kraken led Moron to some empty, long-forgotten ruins, as good a place as any to rest and prepare for the day ahead. Thank you for joining me. Let me know below in the comments if you would like to see me continue the adventures of Moron until his inevitable demise, or if there are any other topics you would like me to cover in future videos. Until next time, live and drink.